Welcome to the Vietnamese Poetry, Literature channel. Today we will listen to the work, Twice Dead, by author Thach Lam. Let's listen. Dung is the fourth child. So when she was born, her parents were not very welcoming. In fact, her parents did not reject their child, they still considered their child as a blessing from heaven, but at that time her parents were already poor. With their previous 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl, Dung's parents found it difficult to work to make sure their children had enough to eat, and that their 2 sons could go to school. After Dung, there was also the youngest child, so the family's situation became even more miserable. When Dung was born, her mother was busy with business and entrusted her to the care of an old man. This old man has been at Dung's house for a long time, and has raised and taken care of all of Dung's brothers and sisters since they were children. But, I don't know if it was because Dung was born in indifference that the old woman fell in love with Dung. You took care of her, held her, and cared for her like her own child, although Dung was sick and difficult to raise as a baby and was covered in scabies and filth. Father Dung did nothing. It's been that way since then. It seems that he was born just to sit at home and be surrounded by people all the time, and to celebrate the holidays with them, wearing neat clothes and going out to eat. No one saw him do anything, and no one thought he had to do anything. He always sat shaking his legs next to the pipe he repaired that made a very good sound, occasionally smoking a cigarette, then pensive as if thinking about something important. At those times, the old man knew that he didn't think anything was important, so he brought Dung to him to hold. He raised his arms and held Dung in his arms, kissed her, then lifted Dung up on his lap, wiggled her belly to make her laugh, and then solemnly handed her back to the old man. After that, he sat down to think again. Perhaps he thought that his family's situation, when he was a mandarin, was very rich and bossy throughout this area. Since my great-grandfather passed away, my family's fortune has gradually declined, and my family's situation has deteriorated, leaving me with nothing but my reputation. Dung's parents also did not think about forcing her to go to school like her siblings, perhaps because they thought that taking care of them was enough. The older Dung gets, the thinner she becomes. All day long she just ran around and fought with the children of the lower class family, as her father called them, the poor people living around the market. Many times when she came back from somewhere, her father would call her, beat her with a cane and forbid her from playing with those children. After the beatings, Dung went back to playing with the children, and seeing that it seemed like her father only banned them as a matter of fact and didn't care, she firmly joined those low-class people, wandering around the market all day long. Sometimes, when her mother arrived home and saw her messy clothes and muddy hands and feet, she just sighed and said, "This one will eventually break down." Then she went back to doing business as usual, after leaving her husband with some money to spend in the house, and after Dung and his sister each nagged for a dime for gifts. Dung saw that and was not jealous, because she had never been very close to her brothers and sisters. Whenever she was hungry while playing, she would run back and ask the old man for a bowl of cold rice or some other food, but the old man would give it to him and run around like a young animal without knowing what to think. These things gave Dung a strange calmness and patience. On the most Tet day in the house, her brothers and sisters were allowed to wear new clothes and have fun, while she still had to wear old clothes to work in the kitchen. Dung did not complain. But she knows she can't complain. Many times she heard the old woman tell her mother to make a shirt for her, and her mother replied. Luckily for that slave, what did she do? Let it tear it apart? As for telling her father, Dung knew it would be ineffective, because her father never dared to do anything on his own. Life goes on like that in that small corner of the market. Dung was suddenly 14 years old, but everyone thought she was still a child, but her personality was like that of a real child. Old Yu sometimes had to yell at her. Now you have to be a little more serious. Many years old, what else? Dung innocently asked. What is decency, huh? Being decent is being decent, what else? She asked absent-mindedly. She doesn't seem adult at all. Yes, I'm not an adult. But if no one remembers, what should I do? The old man carried the fan and beat it. Dung ran to hug him, then lovingly leaned into the old woman's ear and whispered, I have an adult, my uncle and aunt don't love me more. So the two of us remained silent and didn't say anything anymore. One day Dung's mother brought a lady from the province to visit. Seeing strangers, especially the woman's urban dress, Dung just stood and stared. Strangely enough, this time Dung did not see her mother scolding her to leave like every other time she had guests. The stranger also looked attentively at Dung from head to toe and asked Dung again. After that, the two women whispered to each other forever. Dung's mother invited the guest to stay for dinner, then personally sent her off to the station. After a while, one day Dung's mother returned the goods, called Dung closer, took out a paper-wrapped package and said, This is your new shirt. Take it out and change it, but who would ever wear such ragged clothes? Dung will take the paper package and open it, seeing the dazzling white shirt, the pink shirt, the purple silk shirt, a few pairs of red silk pants, a few blouses, a few camisole collars, and dozens of yards of fabric. Dung asked in a trembling voice. Whose is that, mother? No, that's just mine. Dung happily fiddled with the buttons of her shirt. Old Yu also came closer and complimented him. From that day on, Dung's mother pampered Dung very much and did not hate her like before. She forced Dung to dress neatly and practice wearing shoes, but without her mother, Dung threw away her shoes to go out because she was not used to getting her hair done and her teeth dyed. At the end of August that year, the guest came down to visit and stay for dinner. Dung's mother called Dung into the room, closed the door, and whispered to her child for more than an hour. After the door opened, Dung came out with red eyes as if she had just cried, and shyly did not dare to look after the guest. But after a while of coaxing, Dung was happy and laughing again as before. Whenever the neighborhood children made fun of her, Dung just smiled. So Dung got married. When she got married, she was as confused and strange as a country person coming to the province. Dung sees getting married as an opportunity to go away, an opportunity to leave her cold family and the familiar market neighborhood. Getting married for her is a new experience. Therefore, when she got into the car to go to her husband's house, Dung did not cry at all. She also paid attention to the family's strange things and did not hear the cool and jealous wishes of her two sisters and her baby. Upon arriving at her husband's house, Dung learned that her husband was a second-grade student, both confused and stupid. She was small but her husband was even smaller. But her mother-in-law and her husband's brothers are very cruel. After the second day of joy, Dung took off her mother-in-law's bracelets, dressed in bright brown clothes like when she was at home, and followed her husband's brothers to work in the fields. Her husband's family is rich, but her mother-in-law is very stingy, refusing to support workers but forcing her daughter-in-law to work. Poor Dung, since she was little, she hasn't had to do any hard work. Now she has to scoop water, pull weeds, and work hard all day long. Even so, there was no one to comfort me. Her husband flies kites all day, doesn't know anything and doesn't dare to argue with the old lady. As for her two younger brothers-in-law, they were very terrible, competing with each other, causing her to be scolded even more. When Dung was working very hard and crying, her mother-in-law would complain. Just do it, don't sit there and sniffle. There are no people in my family who play around, no one hugs their husband all day. Then she added, now that I'm a member of my family, I have to do it. A few hundred silver coins for the wedding, but I won't take it for free. Dung just cried, not daring to say anything. She wrote 3 or 4 letters telling her about her suffering, but there was no response from her parents at home. One day, the whole family happened to be away, so Dung quickly stole a few silver coins and snuck to the station to get a train ticket to return home. When she arrived, her mother asked in surprise, "Hey, when will you come back? Are you going alone?" Dung was scared and didn't dare say he had run away, so he had to find an excuse to lie. But by evening, she was so scared, knowing that tomorrow her mother-in-law would come down to look for her. She boldly told her parents all about her first love, the torture she had endured, and asked for permission to stay at home. Her father smoked a cigarette in a silver-encrusted pipe, then fell silent as if thinking. As for her mother, she got angry and scolded her. "Married but still wants to stay at home. Why are you so stupid? You have to know how you got into doing business like that. The day before, when I came home, it was 10 times harder, but not as hard as you are now, miss. Early tomorrow morning, Dung's mother-in-law will come down." As soon as she saw the in-laws, she said coolly, "My family is not lucky enough to raise a daughter." Well, her son asked to return it to her but did not dare to keep it. Dung's mother argued, "Oh, why do you speak strangely? Now he is your daughter-in-law, I don't know about it. Let her do it however she wants. I just know he's not my child anymore." One woman gave in to the other, and finally Dung was ordered by her mother to prepare to go with her mother-in-law. She was so miserable, she couldn't cry anymore. She no longer had any hope in her parents' house. Thinking about the harsh words and torture she would have to endure, Dung felt cold as if she had a fever. Her eyes were dizzy, her mind was confused. Dung wished for death as a way to escape debt. She doesn't remember anything clearly. She didn't know when she got to the river. As if in a dream, Dung vaguely saw the edge of the bridge and saw the flow of water. Her mind sharpened when a cold wish hit her face. She fainted in frustration, saw red blood welling up, then a dark membrane came to cover everything. Suddenly, she dreamily heard the voices of many people, calling her name, and a wave of hot water entered her neck. Dung hesitated, wanting to answer. I'm awake, I'm not afraid anymore. Now just cover yourself with a blanket to keep warm and boil some ginger juice to drink and you'll be cured." Dung gradually remembered. When she opened her eyes and saw herself lying in the room, the old man was holding a small lamp at the head of the bed, looking at her and smiling sadly. "Are you awake yet?" Dung nodded. "I'm awake." After a while, she asked again. "What's wrong with me? Where's Grandma? Is she back yet?" Old Yu put his hand on Dung's forehead and did not answer the question. "You're still tired. Go to sleep." 2 days later, Dung was completely healthy. The mother-in-law was still waiting for her, and asked more harshly, "Are you planning to commit suicide to give me a bad reputation? But there is no way, God has eyes, but it is easy to die. So what are you planning now? Are you planning to stay or are you planning to return?" Dung sadly replied, "I'd like to go home." When following her to the station, Dung saw people on both sides of the street looking at her and whispering. She knew people were paying attention to her curiously. Seeing the river flowing far away, Dung sadly thought about his death. This time when she returned to her husband's house, she must have drowned, dying without expecting anyone to save her. Dung felt a feeling of depression and coldness. When her mother repeatedly called her to give her money to get a ticket, Dung had to quickly turn away to hide her tears. At the end of the work, please support me with the like button and subscribe to the channel to listen to more works.